Pink Cloud Radio 58. I'll change from you, but I won't change for you. It's a basic fact. I'll change from you. From everything you do out there. All of you. All of you really have that kind of influence, but I'll never change for you. Which is different. And I think that's where a lot of this torturous device of my talk will go to. Everything I've talked about, from friends to relationships, anything that I've had experienced in my personal life, it was all based on that. You know, changing from somebody is a lot different from changing for them. Sometimes when you change from them, they blame somebody else because, well, they wouldn't be bothered by that. They know who I am. That's the idea most people carry when they do something, that, oh, they won't be bothered by something like that. But the thing is, it's not about being bothered or not. It's the fact that if you're basically wanting somebody to change, you know, to what you feel, you know, you want somebody to change for you, at some point it's not going to work. In fact, it's going to make the complete opposite effect where they won't want to be around you anymore. That's one of the main things that I've learned on my own, that I won't be with somebody who's going to just want me to change. I mean, I'll change on my own, you know. We change every second. So, really, if you need somebody to change for you, then you need to change. You know, then it's really you who needs to change, you know. You don't need somebody else to change. And if somebody is not making you happy, you know, in that effect, you know, like I said, I'll change from you. That's no denial. You know, especially if you're, you know, wanting, but I won't change for you. Because what would be the point of changing for you? Bigger influence is changing from you. You know, I don't need to have everything in a perfect design. What would be like, you know, I don't need somebody who's easygoing or high maintenance. That stuff doesn't matter. If that's what matters, if that's what makes a relationship, those kind of things, having a certain kind of person think a certain way or another person think another way, then it's really a worthless relationship. Like, when I think about that, like, that really wouldn't matter. But it would matter if that person wanted something each time. You know, when you think about, like, not relationship-wise, but when you're talking about things. When you're talking about, like, if somebody's easygoing, but if they're so easygoing, then it's not, then, you know, you can only trust that so much, you know. But at the same time, it doesn't mean you can't trust it. It just means that there is some, you know, means to an end and stuff like that, where you have certain things that you have to emphasize about the relationship you're in. And it's the same reason why somebody could tell me, hey, let's just have sex. And I'd be like, you know, thanks for the offer, but I get too attached, you know. And it's true, you know. I'm not going to lie when I say that. I do, you know. I'll change from that, but I'll never change for that. You know, that's the thing. Like, would I want sex so badly that I'll change who I am to get it? Nah. A lot of people do, though. No denial, you know. Sex options, a lot of people change for it. They say feelings are too much, you get hurt more. Technically, that's not true, you know. How many more people out there have gotten into worse situations because they just had sex and options? Let's see, let's count the numbers. And I don't need to look at Maury or Dr. Phil or Steve Wilkos to understand that. It's pretty easy when you hear people talk about it in personal life. They just accepted it. At a certain point, if you knock off your sensitivity and you don't care about it, the other person's going to do it too. So why would you have a serious relationship with somebody if all you want is the sex? If all you want is the options, the idea of it. That's it. I want a serious relationship with somebody, but then you ignore your sensitivities, then that's what you're going to get from the other person. They're going to ignore your sensitivities too. You do it yourself. You know? You're doing it yourself. That's the one thing I've learned, is that I'll change from all of you. No denial. Anybody who's listening to this or not listening to this, whatever. It's going to come full circle anyway. So, I mean, yes, I'll definitely change from what you're doing. But for you, no thanks. That's not something that makes sense unless it's about something more personal. And if it's something more based on like, hey, Marcello, you got to be more romantic, or you got to do this, that, the other, that's different. But if you're expecting a change of a personality, stuff like that, you know, count it out, you know. Right now in my life, I'm in the middle of nowhere, you know. And because of that, I don't have anything to really squarely deal with. And especially because of that, why would I take you seriously if you just want to change me? That doesn't make much sense. I might as well just take my ex seriously, or take my ex-friends seriously. And look at that and say, you know what? I don't need you then. I just might as well go back to them. I mean, that's the whole running circuit. You know, I'm not trying to get my way. But if I need to be a better man because of it, it means that I got to be myself still. That's being a better man, is being yourself. Most men, you know, don't live in what they're supposed to do and what they should do. And I mean that shit. That's why the government's all corrupt and everything else. Because most people just did everything everybody else did. Didn't say a single word about it. And then you know, there's certain people who talk to them and say, oh, you sounded like you were so strong, and look at you. And then we go back to the same routine of, well, who's more powerful? Who has more ambition? Who has more character? Who has something that they live on constantly? Well, it's not all these men. It's not all those men that are in those positions, but they take it as they take it, you know. And just as much as people will say that, well, you can't change these things, everybody gets theirs, don't worry. Well, you can't, you know, if you control the whip hand, you don't need to worry about who's getting theirs, because you're going to be controlling who's getting theirs. The only way anybody can actually get theirs that are actually doing bad things to people constantly, consistently, over generations and generations, civilizations and societies, is to take it away from them. That's it. But they're taking it away from the people that actually can. So when I hear people say, like, everybody gets theirs, so what did we do to get ours? Tell me. If you're saying because we're all just laying here and looking at it from our perspective and not doing anything about it, that's wrong, because there's a lot of people who are. But it's like what I heard on Ground Zero Radio the other day, on the Ground Zero radio station, the show. You know, why do you think people are interested in conspiracies? Do you really think it's because people believe things so easily? No. It's because they don't believe you anymore. You know? Why do you think they're going to all these other sources? It's because you're not doing your job. As a news reporter, as a journalist, you're not doing your job. If you want people to pay attention to you, do your job. Don't make it entertainment. Do your job. They at least are doing their job. They're researching it. They're bringing you certain factual government paperwork that actually shows it. Government documents and everything. Here you go. You want evidence of it? Here you go. The news doesn't do that. They don't need to bring evidence. All I need to say is a new statistic came out. A new poll shows. That's all you need to say. For those people to believe it. But at the same time, at a certain time, it doesn't work anymore. And it doesn't get anything across. It's like, well, it hasn't changed anything. Why are we even talking about these statistics or polls? Why are we bringing up these scientific theories or mathematical equations or religious orders for what? Things are still the same and getting worse. There you go. Once you don't see results from something that's continually been going on for generations and civilizations, there must be something wrong with those means to get to an end. Because maybe that end isn't what we want. Maybe that end isn't a good end. And that's why it's taking so long and we're seeing so many bad flaws and, you know, bad things happening. It doesn't just happen out of the air like, oh no, it's just, you know, little people that, you know, just have gone off the end with their brains. I wish it was that easy to say. I wish I could actually believe that. You know, I wish I could sit here and say, you know what, it's just only a few bad eggs. No, the good eggs, it's a few, you know, it's a few good eggs that are being punished by the bad eggs. I mean, what do you expect? You know, if you want people that are good in society, you're not gonna, you can't have it both ways. Meaning that you can't be bad to be good. But a lot of people act that way. I'm not talking about the so-called terrorists that they're gonna label all the time. Those are just people trying to push themselves away from a problem that they could have created, that they don't want to take responsibility for. Oh no, they're not a part of it. They're not a part of us. If we're not going to take responsibility for those things, what's the point? You know, and that's the thing about it. We don't want to take responsibility. We just want to blame. That's all we want to do as individuals. Just blame somebody else. Blame somebody else. Blame it on that. Let's link it towards that. It'll make it easier for us. Russia, Middle East. Let's just use those things. You know, the things that nobody knows about. Nobody really knew about the Middle East before we actually went there. So, you know, I'm not calling them stupid, but they are. If you don't take the time to research your country and what they have done to the rest of the world, just as much as the rest of the world has done to us. And to be honest, it's the same frail scapegoat that most people say, is that, well, through this violence comes a good end. Well, then it's the same thing for other countries. Maybe they're doing the violence for a good end. So why is their violence worse than ours? It's not. It's not. In fact, it's nothing at all if you really compare it. It's just the exact same thing, only flipped. You know, you flip the page, there's another page. If you don't want to read that page, then you don't read it. You avoid it. And you just go to the next page and say, I'm reading the pages that are on the right side only, not on the left side. Then you don't really want to find out history. You know, why do you think in the bombing raids in Afghanistan, they destroyed all the libraries so that history would be gone? In Iraq, that's what they did. The libraries were gone. They ransacked all the libraries, gone. Most of them destroyed. And that's the whole point. You destroy everybody's history and write your own history of them. That's what you do. And the only history you need to know is how we destroyed them. That's all. Made them a pure democracy. That's not pure at all. Democracy is not controlled as this. That's all I need to say. Only individuals can create it, not a war. But it's plentiful if you think that actual war can actually do that. And I think that's what really means from, changing from things. I was born in 1986, Iran-Contra, and everything else that has come since. But everything else before that has influenced up until now too. Up until my birth too, and up until now too. Germany barely paid off all its debt for World War One. World War One. Paid off all its debt. Finally in 2010. So, if I'm talking like this, it's because I can see that there's a lot of shit right there. Shit that's fallen, shit that's up, shit that's down. But it's up to, the individuals to decide that. And I think that's what I really mean by I'll change from them, but I won't change for them. Because it's really about that. It's about what you're willing to do in life. Are you willing to understand other people? Or are you willing to accept other people? Or are you willing to just say, we're going to coexist, but we're going to coexist my way? Then it's not coexisting. It's a nice ideal. You're using a label to define what it means, what substance matters. Does your substance as a character matter and a personality matter more than another person's? You're going to do it that way. But it doesn't make it true. More than what the news can tell you. More than what the whole rational view of the world is from where you were born. Can never get above what a human is. But of course, you can try to think you're above what a human is and define which humans are willing and which humans are not willing. And that's what matters to you. That's what gives you your life. Is judgment, disapproval. There you go. That's what's going to count more. Your disapproval, not your approval. That's the point of all this. That's the point of all these drone strikes in Pakistan that's killed a lot of people. A lot of innocent people too. It's the bleeding heart that's hypocritical. You cry for the deaths of 3 people after a bombing, but you don't cry for anybody that was killed in Pakistan from drone attacks that were innocents. That had nothing to do with what's going on. So, I hope you enjoy your life. I hope you enjoy that you define the quality of what a human is and which ones you're going to have a bleeding heart for by where they live. That's all I got to say about that. Not how they think, but where they live. Because how people think isn't the juice of the story. Everybody has their own way of thinking. We can all say, well, they're mentally disturbed. Then you might as well kill all the people who have Asperger's, ADD, ADHD, anybody who has any social handicap, who's awkward, who's nervous when they're talking to somebody. I mean, you might as well. You have no reason to accept those kind of, the huge parameter of life that's around us. There's no use to accept it. No use to actually understand it and give names to it. Just kill it. That's the same thing we did with animals. We just dissect. The same thing that we're being told that aliens will do. But aliens and movies and all this other stuff that's been created, that's what humans do. That's what humans do. We like defining the characterizations of people through negative images of ourselves. Because it's the easy thing to do, to scapegoat something that may not even exist. If it does exist, that's how we're going to view them now. They haven't come here for a war ever. You're telling me that's what they're going to do? I'd love to see that. Honestly, I'd love to see you be right for once. But the funny part is, you're probably wrong. They're probably not even going to try to visit here. They wouldn't want to visit somebody who hates them that much already before they even meet them. Yes, aliens. You really think if they have this much technology, they're probably looking at us and going, "We're not going to go visit that place. Look how much they're hating aliens in those movies they're making. Why would they want to visit us?" I'm glad. I hope they don't. Hope they just leave us in our war, not our peace, because we're not in peace. We're in pieces. That's all. We're in pieces. And saying young and dumb is a conclusion to do what you want when young, without consequences. I talked about this last time. Old and smart because the opposite does not happen always. That's not necessarily true, though. Right now in me, I am left unemotionally full pump. Mostly because people want to do what they want and not spend time with me. Meaning that they don't want to be around me. That's their idea. And it's fine, It's fine. I'm not condemning them for not wanting to be a friend of mine or not wanting to hang out with me. Or not wanting to be in a relationship with me. That doesn't matter. But the fact is, if you don't want to hang out with me, then don't try to make me feel better by saying maybe you'll get some other friends. Won't happen unless you accept me. Why would anybody else? You've known me this long. You really don't want to accept me. And I think that's where this whole big ground point of life is. If you truly honestly want to do something with life, do it. But if you're too scared, or if you feel more accomplished by bullying people, putting revenge on people, being cynical, sarcastic, then go ahead, do that. I'll see how much you accomplish in your lifetime. You'll get a lot of laughs. Maybe you'll make a certain amount of people think. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work. Sarcasm and cynicism, all this other stuff doesn't really work too well. It's not like it has worked. For generations and generations, people have been sarcastic and cynical. There hasn't been that much change in the world from those kind of things. I'm not saying that at all. But we have enough people who are sarcastic and cynical. At least in that form. I understand sarcasm, I understand cynicism to a certain extent, where it makes sense to use it. But we don't need to protect ourselves with those kind of things too. We don't need to use it as a self-defense mechanism to make our point. You made your point. Don't make fun of me because you can't make a point to me to make me believe you. I don't believe somebody else. I believe myself and the research I've done. And outside of that, the personal experiences are showing it enough. The fact that nobody has responded to any of my pink clouds to a big, vehement level shows that there is some truth in what I'm saying. Because no one's saying anything. Not to a big extent having a big conversation about it. They're not going to. Maybe they're not even spending the time listening to all of it. But that's fine. And maybe other people are just dumbfounded by the fact that I could say so much when I haven't had much experiences. But I don't need much experiences. I've met the scientists. I've met the mathematicians. I've met the religious orders and religious peoples. None of them are doing anything. None of them. No matter how much they do, they're not doing anything. They're doing the same thing that everybody else has been doing. Nothing. And nothing will change that. I'm not putting down religion to the extent where I'm saying there's no God, there's no this or that, the other. I don't need a religion to use. I don't need a religion to have the identity of God. The identity of God is, if it is in fact in the way that people have spread it. I have a skin. I have a shell. There you go. What else do you need? Do you need something else outside of that? You don't feel protected enough? You'll never feel protected then. You need something other than God. You don't need God then. You need to idolize something other than God. And that's what you're probably doing. That's what you're probably doing. You're idolizing something other than God. I mean, it's fine, no big deal. I'm just telling you that you can't get anywhere else except if you're especially if you're handicapped like that about things. And I think that's what I mean by, a lot of people just say young and dumb. I mean, that's fine. You could be young and dumb. I'm not critical of that, But I do think that when you, like me, emotionally full pump, people don't really respect that. They don't look at that and go, hey, this guy, he's just waiting for the right person to be with him. He's not looking for the one, he's looking to not be treated like no one. That's true. I'm not anybody's punching bag. That's the reality. I'm not anyone's punching bag. If you want me to be a punching bag, I'll joke around with you, but you'll never hear from me. I'll never be your friend, never hang out with you like that, at least to that level. Unless you truly want to hang out. Most likely you wouldn't want to because you'll see my reaction to you treating me like a punching bag and I'll be like, no thanks. Because I don't need to be there. You obviously don't need me there. Duh. But it's not even about not needing me there or wanting me there or anything like that. It's the way you're treating me that'll bring the end to it pretty quick. You pull out the rug, what's going to happen? You're going to fall. Especially if you're standing on the rug. There you go. And I think that's what really this is about. Like, personal opinions are not personal attacks. How many people in my lifetime and further back have made personal opinions personal attacks? Well, they're attacking our country with those views. No, they're not. They don't agree with the history that's been written. Doesn't mean they, doesn't mean they hate a certain place. It means they don't like the history that takes away from the real rich history. That is not clean. And we have to accept that reality. If we don't want to accept that reality, then that person deserves to have that personal opinion. Outside of this whole realm of what people think the reality is, we know what the reality is. And here you are stinking the flesh of people that don't matter to you because they are attacking something that you're trying to preserve as pretty when it never was pretty to begin with. When the only thing that made it pretty was the history books that changed it up a lot. But the personal stories we hear from every single person that went through it have us a different take on it. Housed through all these lives, we always think, well, those people, it's because they don't like that they lost. Oh, I love that. One of my favorite lines. They don't like that they lost, so they're just changing what happened. No, they're not. You're changing what happened because you won. You're changing what happened because you won. You're making a pretty image of something that is such a lie. Such a lie. I love how people paint losers as if they honestly are just changing stories all the time, when it's really the winners that do that. The winners do that all the time. So you want to blame the losers? The losers have nothing to gain to lie at that point. They lost. What else can they gain from lying about it? It's great that most people can do that because, hey, they lost, so you could just make fun of them your whole entire life. You have a good time with that. But I think that's an easy way to radically change how people think. Because, if you think outside of a box, that is the mentality of the line in the sand, then what else do you got? Nothing. You don't have yourself. I've looked at Alex Jones, I've looked at Jack Blood, I've looked at Michael Shanklin, I've looked at a lot of different people. And I've looked up their information and, I'm not saying they're all 100%, but I don't need them to be 100%. If I needed them to be 100%, then I would say the same of my journalists, which they've lied too. So as much as a propaganda machine as anybody can be, we're all living in a propaganda machine. What do you expect? Expect people to use non-propaganda to get popular? It's not going to work. The fact is exactly what I'm doing. Look, no propaganda from me. Non-publicity is my reward, because you'll never see me anywhere except here. You can enjoy it. You know, maybe some poetry books, some novels of mine to be published, and maybe I'll be interviewed a little bit. Probably not too much, because I'll be very outspoken about the fact that I'm me. I'm not you. Apologize for that, but it's not going to change. I apologize that me being me, it somehow inflicts damage onto you. But you know what? If it inflicts damage onto you, it doesn't matter what we change in this world. It always will. That's the difference. It doesn't matter what the hell changes in this world, as it is or differently in the future. Nothing will ever take away how you feel about being insecure about yourself. Nothing. No matter what anything, no matter how much control you have of the world, nothing will make you secure until you are. You have to be secure before the world is. Because the world is secure once you're secure. You don't need to worry about anything else, anybody else. Those things will happen. People will go crazy. But people go more crazy because they're not secure with things than if they are. The fact is, how this whole story came about, don't know. Don't clearly care. All I care about is that my personal thing matters. Though many people take those rights away as a disagreement. Everybody in society, say a democracy, has showing of much freedom, you know. But if majority rules, how is that freedom? I have to say that, sadly. It is true though, you know. If the majority rules, where's the freedom? You know, there you go. You know, right there, that proves that freedom is entitlements in any kind of state you're in. Whether you're in the minority, majority, anything. You're entitled to all of it. But if the majority rules, that's not freedom. Just as much as even in a republic, that could be taken away pretty easily. But it's mostly because you could just kill off the people that don't matter, that disagree, you know, especially if they're in the minority. Woo! Well, this is just a minority. It's only one guy. Let's get rid of him. It's only one girl. Let's get rid of her. That's all I need to do, you know. No damage done. Your society still will stay intact with everybody agreeing to it. But not everybody does. And that's the thing that always will happen. And until you're truly secure with yourself, all this other stuff won't matter. So if I tell you constantly that you have to accept people for who they are, blah, 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 won't matter until you want to. No matter, it won't matter because you don't want to accept yourself for who you are. You know, and that's not even psychology or philosophy. Fuck it. I don't need to use those means. You need to be yourself. You always need to be. If you don't want to be, what's the point? What's the point of going around every day? Yes, you work for other people. That doesn't mean you're somebody else. That means we live in a society that has been somebody else for years. It's time to change that. But it's not going to change until you do. You know, I'm not telling you that we're going to have everything 100% right when you're secure. It's going to take time because there's been so many people that have been insecure. That's a lot to take on your back. But it's time to. It's time to take on our backs what everybody has done before us, before us, before us, before us. The insecurity was there. The insecurity has been there so many damn times. It's the same reason why people are fighting for equal rights for gay marriage and, you know, and stuff like that, which is fine by me. I don't mind that. But if you have to fight for equal rights for that, what about your individual equal rights? Do you still have them? Or are you allowing them to go away? You just want to be at the table with your mate. Because maybe that table is just all chains. Chains on your chains on your arms, on each one of you around the table. I mean, do you really want to sit at that table? That's all I got to say about that. You know, I mean, that's how I feel about it. Because it's like we're bickering over things that matter to you and I. But why do they matter? When you're going to die that way. I'm not saying you have to die fighting. But you have to die trying. You gotta die trying. No one else can try for you. And I think that's the one thing a lot of people take the privilege of. There we go, privilege. People love using that statement and say, well, no, that's not a right, that's a privilege. No, it's a right. If it's a privilege, then we don't have no freedoms. We never did. If it's only been a privilege in our entire existence as America or any other state of whatever it was, then we never have freedoms. We never have had freedoms then. If they're only privileges. If they're going to be knocked off because of one other person making a mistake, then it's not freedom. Never was. It never even was up to that point. Because if it can be taken away because of that point, because of that one thing, then it never was freedom to begin with. It was based on the popular mechanics of our lives. On the basis of, well, one voice speaking loud, or a voice of people speaking loud about the oppression of such, or so on and so forth, takes away all that right. There's no rights. If you want to decide our lives based on somebody making a mistake, somebody destroying somebody's life, then you're destroying everybody's lives. So, I have to say, all these people who say they're not martyrs, they're showing a completely different side in real life. Look at all the things you're giving up. You guys are so much martyrs. Giving up your gun rights based on a school shooting. Giving up discretion because of Rodney King. Guys, all of you are the biggest martyrs in the world. Look at what you're doing. You're giving up everything to everybody else in power. Who's the martyr? I'm not a martyr. Damn, I congratulate you for being such martyrs. For giving up everything because you want to be protected. You guys are martyrs. I'm not a martyr because I don't want to give up my individuality for things. But I'll give up my individuality if we all can. But it doesn't matter if we all can. Because you never had it. So even if you had given up so much, your martyrdom is in vain. You're giving yourself up in vain. For what? For having the supply to understand better that we need to be protected because of other people's violence? We always had the power to protect ourselves from violence. If you don't feel that you have enough freedoms and you have to go to the government to create more laws, then you never wanted to protect yourself in the first place. That's all I'm going to say, If one event can do that, if any event can do that, then you never tried to protect yourself from anything in your life. You've always wanted to experience everything and didn't want to get hurt. But you did. The fact of the matter is, if you're looking for protection from everything, it means you haven't been protected. You haven't protected yourself from anything. And I think that's what really is this whole thing. Is the same thing with abusive relationships. If you, and this could be in any kind of discretion, whether it's a relationship or a family or anything. If you've had those experiences and you don't want to protect yourself from it, not in the way of you have to fight everybody to do so, you don't. To be honest, fighting is the worst way to try to get your way, or try to understand yourself. The best way to understand yourself is accept them. Not accept them in the terms of you accept everything that they believe and believe it yourself. No, I mean you accept what they're saying and you don't fight them against it. You just keep on telling them, no thank you. That's not how I feel. And if you don't know that, then you'll never understand what kind of person I am. If you're just going to label me as somebody else, that's what you're going to do your entire life. You've already done it. You've already done it. And I've done something completely different than that person. And you're still labeling me as that person. How can I be different until you see it? I can't move out. I can't be independent until you see it with me being dependent. I can't do anything different until you can see it too. And until you want to see it, nothing's going to change. This has to do with family, this has to do with friends, this has to do with anybody. If you don't want to see it, you never will. You'll always say, no, they're not capable, they're not capable, they're not capable. Just because you weren't capable doesn't mean somebody else isn't. Just because your daughter or your sister or your friend wasn't capable doesn't mean this other person that you're talking to isn't either. It doesn't mean the same thing. They're not the same person. It's nice that you want to label them the same person, because damn, you have such a short stock of friends that that's all you can have is the label mate and say, hey, that label right there looks like this label. They're not the same person. Am I capable? I don't know. But Am I the same person as somebody else? No. That's all I can tell you. That's all I can ever tell you. If I was the same person as somebody else, I would have done 100% exact the same. Just to be honest with you. If I want to do something, I do it all the way. Just as much as my writing and everything else that I've been doing for years. I put my passion into something. So wouldn't I have done the exact same thing as somebody else if I truly believed in what they believed in? I would have done it all the way. All the things I grew up with has really taught me that. Be exactly honest with that. That's the truth. Is that I would do something all the way if I truly wanted to do the exact same thing. I don't need to be somebody who's like a vicious cleaner, neurotic about cleaning. No. Just a little bit each day to clean up, to get a little good, and then keep on spending time doing what I like as well. So you have a good vibration of like a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there. So you're not overwhelmed by anything. You just accept everything and get whelmed by everything instead of overwhelmed. And that's what you do. You create a better life for yourself, and you don't try to give anybody else an invigoration to think differently of you. Until they want to, individually. And they see the strength in you. If they don't see the strength in you, they never will. They'll always say something else is on the branch. Like a tree. They'll always say something else is on the branch. But then it doesn't matter. And I think that's what really goes down to what I'm going to talk about now. Godzilla versus King Kong. If you really look at that movie, I only bring this movie up because King Kong looks like a drug addict, controlled by greedy capitalists. And he is, technically. Godzilla, a small-brained, relentless attacker, representing the dual relationship of people and their ideas of attributes by global actions. Don't always say who people are. It does say a lot of you if you're willing to give up all to be greedy or go out and kill. Not one is worse or better to act as. And I think that's what really we're getting here, is the King Kong versus Godzilla relationship. It is that. It is that. And that's what the world is right now. The world actions and global actions of the world. We've come to a point where either you're going to be addicted to being controlled by the greediness. And I think a lot of people are done with that. You know, they're doing that. You know, a lot of people say they're individuals. They're representing themselves. But they look like drug addicts who are controlled by greedy people. They don't look like they're themselves. They always look disheveled. They always look separated from everything. They don't look individual at all. They look like they're the wall that was torn down in '89. They look like, you know, when people were pulling parts down. They look like that. They look like the wall falling down. I mean, they don't look like individuals. Just saying. I mean, when you're staring at your cell phone and sending text messages every second and looking at your phone, making sure, you don't look like you're an individual. You look like you're separated from everything. And even the stuff that you're connected to, you're separated from. So it doesn't make any sense to say, I'm an individual. Oh, hold on, I gotta check my phone. You know, and Godzilla being the small-brained, relentless attacker. Which is what most people see as the superficialness of our society now. This is the appearance of everything. We don't need to say anything about people thinking differently. We just need to say it's bad. That's what we need to do. So, me being a Godzilla kind of thing, which is what I am. I don't have a small brain, but I could definitely say I'm a relentless attacker. And I don't have a small brain because I don't relentlessly attack like other people do. Don't need to. Need to tell you. I relentlessly attack your brain. Make you think differently. Don't try to brainwash you. Fuck that. Think the way you do. But know the results of what you do. If you don't want to, take the time to understand it. If you want to avoid that part and just be apathetic and misanthropic, you can do that too. Have a good time with that. I didn't create that for you. So to just be funny about it, if I can brainwash people, who brainwashed them to believe apathy and misanthropy? I didn't. In fact, I never say hate humanity or hate everything. Man, somebody is really brainwashing people to believe the apathy and misanthropy. It sure ain't me. It's a nice thing if you could blame one person for what you're doing. for what the media is doing, for the media which is controlled by the corporations and banks who bought up all of them, and then above that they have the powers with the government, and then the Federal Reserve Bank. So I mean, to be honest, this treachery of what we blame as individuals brainwashing is a joke. You brainwash the most people. If you know that these people are being brainwashed, you brainwash the most. You know exactly what brainwashing is. So you're making somebody else who brainwashes somehow worse than you. Well, they did it individually. That's what makes it worse. It doesn't make it worse. It makes you worse. Wow, they only brainwashed one person? That's a surprise. I can't believe they were capable of that. With how much the media and everything else in the world is right now, I can't believe they can brainwash one person to believe something else. I can't believe it. And to be honest, I don't believe it. That's why I question everything. That's why I'm interested in conspiracies and everything, because I don't believe that anybody can actually brainwash people, except for the government. That's why I believe everything is an inside and outside job. 9/11, inside and outside job. Both ways. Because it's just like wrestling. Everybody's, fighting, in front of the camera, behind the camera, shaking hands, going to Disneyland. And that's the whole point. That's the whole point of this. And that's just the same frequency we see in abusive relationships. Same thing with King Kong versus Godzilla. If you actually watch the movie from 1962-63, it shows that. Even the fights between Godzilla and King Kong are an example of what's been happening over the years. How we view and judge these characters, even monster characters, is an example of what we are. One of my favorite things about the Godzilla character is Tomoyuki Tanaka said it best. I think it was. He said that Godzilla will never die because there's too much ego in the humans. So Godzilla's going to be around as long as people have pride. As long as humans have pride, Godzilla will exist. And I was like, yes, it's true. It's a true motherfucking statement. And it is true because most of the movies, yes, some of them have gotten off topic of the allegory of war and everything, but they never gotten off topic of what pride humans have whenever they're around Godzilla, whenever they're trying to fight Godzilla. And this is the same thing with King Kong versus Godzilla. You have the kind of inherent spirit to believe that King Kong can win, can prevail, as the greedy capitalist does in the movie. While King Kong looks like a drug addict. And I think that's what really gets to the point of what would be our lives. That, it does say a lot if you're willing to give up all things to be greedy. But that's not just something that is something outside of you. It's just for appearance sake. That's where King Kong versus Godzilla is a great example of that. It's not just for appearance sake. The whole movie played on that theme. And I think that's what really gets the attention right there, is that it's that dual relationship, Yeah, you don't always say who people are, and one isn't worse or better. That's true. Because there's a lot of people who are satisfied in this way of thinking, in just changing for people. They're very happy with that. That's okay. That's alright. I ain't trying to tell you not to. But you change from people, so why, I don't understand why you would do double work. You already know how you feel. If you know from changing someone that you don't like how you've changed, why would you like it any better if you changed for them? And that's all I gotta say, really. Can't really close the door on this, but gotta. And say, take care, love,